we need some help this expansion. Now, who needs help? The players who need help are the ones who are kind of trying, kind of thinking right now, since we are at this point like 3 months into the expansion, thinking about perhaps maybe one day playing some other characters other than your main character. Because while playing your main character and gearing up your character, getting either high level myth track gear from the raid, or perhaps very simply from crafting, and keeping up with the weekly requirements of things like your crests, right? On your main character, perhaps your main character is a raider, so he gets to have almost all of the crests he needs every week just by doing a weekly clear of the raid. That's not really the problem right now. Although we actually did have a video pointing out that this season we have been gearing up towards the max item level of the season much more slowly than usual. Nowadays the top item level is around 638-ish, 639 item level if you have your entire gear at myth track 4 out of 4. But this is something you were able to achieve in a Mirjosil, in a Berus, something like 3 weeks in, 4 weeks in, the first month of the expansion, you kind of could have gotten to that level already. So we are already quite much slower, even on our main characters, to get maximum power. But as we also explained, that lower level power is also because of the catch-up mechanism we have in the raid right now. So we are right now 9% stronger in the raid because of this buff, which sort of means we are some 6 to 7 item levels stronger whenever we are in the raid because of this raid buff. What we are complaining about for today though is anything that isn't your main. Because of course, when you're trying to play with anything that isn't your main, you don't have all of these luxuries, right? You haven't been raiding every week, right, to get your freebie loot, or even an easier way to get some crests, gilded crests. You haven't kept up doing multiple Mythic Plus keys above 8 every week to get all of your gilded crests, or perhaps you very simply just now leveled a new character. And when you do that, you will be faced with the imagery of you requiring, for example, some 900 plus gilded crests to even get to the same level of your main character. Like in this case, for example, my priest is about 800 gilded crests behind my shaman. If we convert these crests in the amount of Mythic Plus keys I would need to do, I would need about 66 keys to be able to get up to the same level of my main. So for example, to get this hero 4 out of 6 to 6 out of 6, and this one as well to 6 out of 6, and this one as well to 6 out of 6, and why not this one as well to 6 out of 6, you would have to do dozens upon dozens of Mythic Plus keys. Now we have of course also seen the way players have praised the ease with which you can start your alt characters, right? You can start, for example, by the leveling system, which is very quick and fast. This expansion, we have also gotten the catch-up mechanism right now, where you are 5% faster for every alt you already have at max level. Nowadays, it's even better with the WoW anniversary to be even faster with leveling. We have gotten the introduction of the delve system. Now, with the delves, as well as thanks to the coffer keys, which guarantee at the end of your run at least 3 bountiful delves per day, a 603 item level piece of gear at the end of the delve. Basically, you have a pretty fast track start to your alt characters. Yes, of course, it takes a little bit of time. You have to do the open world content, which gives you the coffer keys, because Blizzard is smart. They haven't made coffer keys transferable amongst your characters, so your main cannot send 30 coffer keys to your alts. You have to get them yourself, but then by doing a bunch of delves, you get to about 600 item level pretty quickly. It's also, a good system praised by players, for example, because it allows you to, let's say, learn to get used to your character without needing to be, for example, in a raid or in Mythic Plus with other people, where you can fail and grief their experience. You can enter the delve with your Bran on your own, test your weak auras, test your key bindings, get used to the spec just by yourself. So it's also a pretty good system for that when you're trying to play a new character, you're trying to play an alt. So in that sense, the alt system has been pretty good in starting to bring up a character to a decent level. Where we start getting, of course, the problems is when after you have reached that 600-ish item level bracket and you start going into the next best thing, which would be Mythic Plus. You start doing Mythic Plus 4, Mythic Plus 5 and Mythic Plus 6, where you can get up to 606 item level. Then you break from your champion track gear into the hero track gear. You start from Mythic Plus 7, that's when you start getting your hero track gear, and then potentially try to break into the Plus 8, which is also where you can start getting your Gilded crest, the money crests for your upgrades. However, that's where most players lament some of their problems, because that's where it dawns on players just how much time are they expected to be spending on that alt character if they want to be, anywhere close to the level of their mains. Even now you have some like 6 or 7 even sparks of omens, so possible, crafted 636 items available to your characters, which require well over 500 Gilded Crests, for example. So on top of the Gilded Crests, you might want to upgrade your gear, your mid tracks. You also need some 500 plus to just craft your items. And that, as mentioned, is dozens upon dozens of Mythic Plus keys to be completed. Other players have also pointed out some annoyances with this system, which is the fact that nowadays many players, even the ones that are well past this, like for example your main, might very simply want to chill at that level to do their weekly Mythic Plus keys. Either a +8 or a +9 or sometimes a +10 for the Vault track. So what happens is you are gonna have a lot of alts, a lot of fresh new characters at 616, 617, maybe 620, who are perfectly fine completing a +8 or completing a +9 at that level, but then they will go in the looking for group tool and they will have to compete with a bunch of 630, 635 item level players at 2007, 8, 2900, 3k rating who are simply trying to get there for fast crests. So they will get to also be declined over and over way more easily because the level they have to farm all of those 50, 60, 70, 80 Mythic Plus keys is also the same level where players with much higher gear and also much higher rating in Mythic Plus, for example, are just going in for some easy crests, which makes the experience feel like even more of a grind, and of course made even worse depending on your choice of spec, because we know that the meta is a trickle-down thing from the very top. So yes, you're guaranteed to see players asking for a Prot Paladin even in a +9 or even in a +10, even if of course there is absolutely no need for a Prot Paladin to complete easily 2 chests or even 3 chests your +9 or your +10. We have seen Blizzard implement discounts when it comes to crests, as well as discounts when it comes to flight stones, depending on the gear you have. However, this doesn't really impact anything when it comes to the actual costs of your crests. So no matter what, unless you already have a better piece, no matter what, you will always have to spend 15 crests per upgrade on a better piece of gear. And it feels like the whole process is sort of pushing players away from continuing to play those characters, because at one point they will have to ask themselves, do I really want to? Like, okay, I kind of enjoy playing this new alt, I've been gearing up this rogue, this assassination or subtlety rogue or whatever. However, now I have in front of me the option of going to play a different game, going to chill out and watch something, perhaps even go and work out, over the option of running 60 more Mythic Plus dungeons in order to be anywhere close to my main, which seems to be the mindset that pushes a few too many players away from continuing to level and gear up their characters beyond a certain point, beyond the 620-ish item level barrier. That's where they can get with the first few upgrades, with the first few dozens of crests they can get, and then they are like, okay, I have gone through the first hurdle, and then they look at the state of their character and it's like, yeah, it's only 700 more crests before I am done. And that's where they kind of go, you know what? I wasn't really going to push Mythic Plus, I wasn't really going to go for title, I was kind of doing this for fun, but this is gonna take far too long for me, you know, in like 5 days, Path of Exile 2 is out, or maybe whatever other game you are planning on playing, why should I even stay here and run some dozens upon dozens of Mythic Plus keys just to get to the same level of power my main is already at? This feels like too much of a waste of time. So that is the complaint we have for today, or rather the request we have for Blizzard, particularly for Season 2 of The War Within, which is to come up with something to shorten, to quicken, to fasten the progression of your alt characters towards high-ish levels. So something likely to do with your acquisition of crests, pretty much. Some players have pointed out already that even for main characters, even for your mains, upgrades are too costly when it comes to crests, or that even crafted gear is too costly when it comes to crests. But all of this would just feel even worse on your alt characters, because at the very least on your mains you are up for the weekly cap very, very often. So you're always at pretty much, you know, maximum possible power with your crests, or even with the amount of crafted items you have, which is not the same, of course, for your alts. For your alts, you start with 0 crests, you start with 0 crafted items, so everything would just take longer. There have been a few suggestions here and there related to this system's possible improvements, like, for example, do something similar like we are already doing when it comes to leveling. If we have ways to give multiple following characters faster leveling because you already have a certain character at max level, so your next one will be 5% faster in leveling. And then when you have 2 characters at max, the next one will be 10% faster, and then 15 and 20, etc, etc. You could do something similar for crests, right? You could have the crest acquisition be increased by like 2 more crests. So now Mythic Plus will give you 14 crests, or bosses will give you 17, something along these lines. You could have the cheapened cost of crests when it comes to crafted items on your alts. They could cost 75 or then 60 instead of 90 if you have gotten them crafted multiple times on your main. You could finally implement cross characters, so let's just say warband discounts. It seems pretty mean for Blizzard to introduce this warband system, but then don't really add anything meaningful that can actually impact the power of your characters across the warband. Pretty much the only one thing you have when it comes to your warband was the idea of warband items. So warbound on account, except that these items are all very low item level. They are 1 tier below the content you were doing, so they don't really end up mattering that much. It would have been much cooler if, as a warband, you had the option to get discounts on your alts based on gear that your main has obtained. So if your main has a mid-track 4 out of 4 helmet at 639 item level, then your alts would get a discount from 15 crests to 10 crests to upgrade a helmet in that slot, because your main already has the max item level piece for that slot. It could be a collection of any of these possible improvements to sort of just speed up your character in terms of how fast, or rather how long, it takes you to actually get to feel powerful on your alts compared to what it took with your main. Because of course with your main it was a week by week process as the expansion began, as you followed through every week playing your main character. But then of course when you hop onto your alt after 2 months or after 3 months, you don't really want to go as slowly as you went with your main the first time around. You kind of want things to be a little bit more expedited than when you were doing this on your main, which is not really something that is happening right now. It is kind of like if your guild took 300 wipes to kill the Silken Court, and then if your guild runs an alt run with alt characters, you kind of don't expect to also take 300 wipes to kill the Silken Court again. Sure, you are playing different characters, you're playing different specs, you have to learn a few of the different, movements and usage of defensives and whatnot, so it will still take you some dozens or so of wipes, but definitely nowhere near the 300 it took you with your mains. That would be kind of the same expectation you would have on your alt. I am fine running 5, 10, 15, 20, even 30 Mythic Plus keys to get back to a good level of power, but if what awaits me on every alt I want to play is 90 plus Mythic Plus keys, it's kind of a bit too much work, just so I can enjoy a new spec or a different spec than what I was playing as my main. So this is today's crux we have against Blizzard when it comes to ease of access of alts. As we said, it's in a good spot for quite a large part of the player base. That is also likely why we have seen Blizzard praise in the most recent interview the state of the Crests system and the state of the upgrade system, because for many players, for most players, getting to 615, 620-ish item level will be considered good enough for most of the content they are doing. However, for pretty much all of the other players who just enjoy continuing to empower their character, continuing to grow, and see the progress of their character even on their alts, something should be done to bridge the gap, to bridge the time sink required for your alts to grow in power, to be similar, not even as strong, but somewhat similar to your mains without nearly as much of a time sink. That is today's point on this beginning of the week. On Monday, we are starting with a complaint for today. So let me guys know, of course, what is your take about the current state of the alt gearing process in this expansion. And besides this, I guess we will see soon, as we will get 11.1 in the PTR, if we actually do have any planned changes for the gearing system in Season 2 of The War Within. But for today, on this Monday, it is now time to leave each other. We are starting, of course, as usual, the goodbyes by thanking everyone for having watched the video, together with, of course, supporting completely for free by liking and commenting down below, as well as subscribing to the channel itself. Now, with these things out of the way, thank you guys again for watching. See you guys tomorrow, and in the meantime, I'm about to go and shop for some groceries, particularly for potatoes. I wanted to use them yesterday, but I ran out, so this video was helpful to be a good reminder to actually buy potatoes.